Just let me zoom. So, hi everyone. Today's session is Unit 14, Managing Continuous Organisational Improvement. And my name is Shazia Khan. Thank you for attending today's session. And there's 3 learning outcomes in this session that we need to go through. And today's learning outcome will be learning outcome 1. So the unit aim is to enable learners to develop knowledge, understanding and skills to create a culture of continuous improvement in an organisation. So you have the opportunity here to develop your skills and required to plan organisational change. And the unit grading is a unit 7 level, and the unit code, the credit value and the unit grading is there for you to have a look at as well. This is the specification and this is available on Moodle for you as well. The unit grading is a pass, merit or distinction, depending on what you actually demonstrate in the assessment learning outcomes. And the learning outcomes are related to what we do each day for you to identify where you need to get some of the information to complete the assignment. So it is related, you must relate your work to the ATHE assignment, which is set by ATHE, and the scenario using examples and theoretical perspectives. And then also, looking at things that elements that meet the requirements for you to demonstrate that you have met the learning outcomes as well. And to do that, you must be able to identify that you have covered all the learning outcomes to be able to get the pass, merit or distinction award. So the first learning outcome that we'll be looking at, which is today, is to understand how organisations create a culture of continuous improvement and acceptance of change. So to get the pass award for the assignment is in 1.1, you need to look at analysing the features of organisational culture that encourage and allow for continuous improvement. You need to also look at 1.2, which is to assess approaches and methods that facilitate the introduction and acceptance of organisational change. Now, to get the merit 1M1 for the learning outcome 1 is you need to also evaluate how leadership and management styles facilitate. And here we'll be looking at the different styles of management as well. And to get the distinction, which is 1D1, you need to look at assessing the importance of continuous improvement in supporting organisational success. In learning outcome 2, moving on, to get the pass for 2.1, you've got to look at analysing sources of information used by organisations which help to identify the improvements needed, and 2.2, to evaluate big data's contribution to organisational improvement strategies, and to look at the merit criteria for learning outcome 2. You'd look at 2M1, which is to analyse information to identify areas for improvement in a named organisation. And then for learning outcome 2, to get the distinction award, you'd look at 2D1, evaluate the potential benefits of the proposed changes to organisational activities in a named organisation. And finally, learning outcome 3 is to look at planning change for organisational improvement. You'd have the pass and the merit assessment criteria. So for 3.1, you'd evaluate the factors that create the need for change in a named organisation. 3.2, to analyse changes required by a named organisation to achieve improvements. And 3.3, to prepare a plan to implement the proposed improvements for a named organisation. And for the merit criteria, finally, for learning outcome 3, you'd look at analysing the monitoring processes which need to be in place to ensure changes lead to planned improvements. So the indicative content for each learning outcome is there. So the first one we'll be going through is things like organisational features, business culture, leadership management styles and continuous quality improvement. So a lot of that you can look at in your own time because it's the indicative content for each learning outcome. And also this will be available on Moodle for you. Some of the suggested resources and the links are on the module of the spec as well. So you could refer to books and links for the learning outcomes on there as well. So there are links to go on for you to, if there's any sort of resources. And here is the supporting information for Unit 14. So the learning outcomes and how it links to other units within that learning outcome. So how the links are in the assessment criteria. So learning outcome 1, 2, 3, and 4. And it looks at opportunities for skills and development, looking at employability skills, study skills, because, you know, you're at that level where you need to be analysing, you know, and also looking at research skills in more detail. And a lot of this will go through when you're doing your assignment discussion. So this is just really a brief outcome of the module spec. So you've got a better idea of what we're doing in each learning outcome. Is there any questions around the module spec, the unit spec, sorry? Jay, have you got any questions around the unit spec?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Okay, so this is available on Moodle, which is the VLE that's used at UK Varsity. So everything, all the recordings, everything is available on Moodle for you. So before we get on this, let me just share these slides with you. So can you see these slides, Jay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we'll start off firstly with you learning outcome 1, which is to understand how organisations create a culture of continuous improvement and acceptance of change. Learning outcome 1, we look at 1.1, describe the features of organisational culture that encourage and allow for continuous improvement. 1.2, analyse approaches that facilitate the introduction and acceptance of organisational change. 1.3, evaluate different approaches to continuous quality improvement. 1M1, to evaluate how leadership and management styles facilitate continuous improvement in an organisation and the embedding of change. And 1D1, assess the importance of continuous improvement in supporting organisational success. So that would meet the learning outcomes for the pass criteria, for the merit criteria and the distinction criteria for learning outcome 1. The indicative content, as I went through quite briefly, what we'll need to look at, things like organisational features. We need to look at business culture, the business structure, input from employees, leadership and management styles, so different styles and how they are used in management. If you know, things like democratic one, autocratic, what individuals are and how they work within their styles, because some leaders are quite, you know, firm and quite, you know, this has to be done like that, whereas others are not, and we'll go through that. We're also going to look at continuous quality improvement. So things like top, bottom, up, Cotter and Schalsinger, education, communication, participation. We're going to look at TQM as well in regards to quality, continuous quality improvement, the 6 stigma, benchmarking, why these are so important within, you know, management, and why there's a need to have quality assurance in place. So introduction to management. When we look at management, what is the first thing that comes to mind for you, Jay? When someone says management, what do you think management is then?
Okay, you put me on the spot.
Sorry, I've got a, you know, because I've got that university kind of style of teaching where I'll throw everything. I don't read through the slides. I'll throw everything at you.
Yeah, that's fine.
And I think that's how my students learn as well. So I think sometimes it's good to have a discussion around the areas so you have a better understanding of it.
Yeah, I guess management is about it's about having responsibility for an area. Within that, there's obviously a degree of autonomy, but managers generally, it's about ownership of an area and overseeing, you know, that there'll be a remit for a certain area. I think in terms of managing people, there's obviously different approaches to that. But it's about making sure that people are doing the things that they are supposed to be doing, and also, you know, coaching and guiding people to do things.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, I don't think there's actually a certain definition that I would use as a manager, because, you know, the management is things like, you know, you oversee the process, you organize, you plan, you lead the team. You know, it's all about organizational goals to monitor your employee performance, you know, leadership skills, executive skills, they have business skills, you know, so there are different types of skills they have to control and look to make sure that, you know, the goals are effective, like it says, and efficient. So, you know, like you said, different managers have different roles. It doesn't necessarily mean they have to manage in a certain way. And there was, like it said there, the quote by Peter Drucker, who's widely regarded as the guru of management. He said that management is a tasks, management is a discipline, but management is also people. Every achievement of management is the achievement of a manager. Every failure is the failure of a manager. So it's quite interesting, that, isn't it? That the fact that how he portrays management as, you know, there are different ways managers work. You know, they look at the governance sometimes, you know, how the organization runs, how they plan things, you know, how they work. But you know, mainly some managers, you know, prefer to work in an organization that is predominantly you know, like a robot kind of style organization where they're controlling the organization. That doesn't always work. So, you know, everyone has a different style of working. So next, like organizational culture, you have the leadership role, you have the value and the visions, and you have the people, strategy, and the work. Why do you think values, vision, and people are quite important within the organizational culture? I mean, strategy and work process is, but I believe that values for me, I think, are quite important. Why do you think that's? Because that's what it consists of, a manager.
Well, they give substance to strategy. So a vision sort of sets the future ideal of where the team or the company want to go, and that creates a kind of target for everyone. And then values kind of reinforce how you get there, you know, how you get there with integrity, with you know, commitment or quality, or whatever the values of the company are. And then obviously the people are the essential parts to achieving that. So strategy is kind of driven by those three really important areas outside of the kind of processes and tasks of everyday work.
And you know, these kind of organizational culture is, like we said, a set of values, beliefs, you know, the work, the strategy that outline, you know, and influence any sort of behavior from employees. You know, that it reflects on employees, it reflects on customers, vendors, stakeholders, and you know, this is how they experience that brand that the organization has. So it does affect a lot of people, and what their mission is and what their goals are, their values are. You know, these are principles that you know, an organization needs to take into account, because it affects all aspects of the business itself. You know, if you don't take the organizational culture into account, you have to consider that it will affect your business. So, you know, you need to be able to connect with your employees to make it improve your organizational culture. You need to be able to create this positive experience, be transparent. So, you know, you must have values, visions in place so that employees are able to understand them. Organizational culture, as we mentioned, is where, you know, you'd have your vision and you had to have your culture in place. Is thinking about, you know, the different beliefs, expectations, you know, people's languages as well, you know, customs, habits, attitudes of your employees. These need to be taken into account, as well as looking at, you know, the company or the organization's values, norms, and standards. I feel that, you know, when we look at organizational culture, it actually dictates how a company interacts with the outside world.
Yeah.
So, you know, like Edgar Schwan said, it's basic assumption and beliefs that are shared by members of the organization that operate unconsciously and define a basic taken for granted fashion an organization views itself. So things like, you know, your behavior, your norms, your values, you know, how your attitudes is towards your senior management, your rules and policies. You know, it's really important that, you know, you follow the rules and policies as an employee. You know, you need to make sure that you contribute so this social kind of environment for your employees, make sure there's employee engagement. And also with this organizational culture will come, you know, it'll determine kind of new ideas to develop a business and how, you know, it flows as well. So organizational culture is really important. It's a huge factor in any organization when it comes to looking at things like employer experience. You know, it suggests that, you know, sometimes it reduces employer morale, but you've got to make sure you look at you know, nurturing kind of your employees. I know, you know, it's sometimes difficult, but if you're a good manager, you know, you would be supportive, you know, you would take into this, you know, adapt this organizational culture within your organization, you know, to make sure that you are meeting the requirements, making sure that you are, you know, being able to reflect on the different stakeholders and, you know, make sure that you value, because, you know, sometimes some organizations don't really value their employees. And I think that impacts on, you know, the productivity itself. What do you think about organizations outside? Do you think or most organizations value this cultural aspect of an organization?
Probably not. Probably not
Yeah.
all. Probably the best ones do.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a lot of. I was looking at this in my last assignment, but I
Yeah.
was looking at the idea of control-based and
Yes.
commitment-based management styles. And the basic idea is that in a commitment-based model, there are all these things happening at different levels in the organization to make sort of management more inclusive, give people opportunities to develop, promote openness and communication. And so in a culture that is there's good research to suggest that a culture that is in a commitment-based model is more efficient, it's better, it retains better, it, you know, deals with change and issues better.
And as an employee, they tend to stay, don't they? If you think about it, more employees stay longer with an organization that has organizational culture in place.
Yeah, because they align with these sort of intrinsic benefits. They feel like they're making a difference or being listened to, that sort of thing. But I don't think many organizations are necessarily aware of it, especially in like sort of SMEs and things. You know, there's an accepted norm when you go into every company, like, you know, how people respond to emails or like how people, the formality in the office or like the sort of level of creativity, and that has a really big impact on basically the way everyone works. But if you've got, I guess, an organization where you've got there are issues, they might not know how much of an important thing the culture is to do with that.
So it does matter, 100% right, on the organization and how they work. It's really important, and whether they work within their vision and their values, you know, and implement policies in place to identify that. So as an organization, it is important for you to look at your organizational culture and take into account, you know, all these elements such as norms, values, beliefs. Organizational culture. So Hofstede, whose work was particularly concerned with national cultures, defined culture as being collective but often intangible. It's made up of two main elements: the internal values of culture which are invisible, and external values of culture which are more visible, which are known as practices. So he included rituals such as greeting, things like, such as people on television, words and gestures, and why they were so important in regards to it. So his element of that. And then we had Johnson, who looked at defining culture within 4 layers, so values and beliefs. And that's what we've just gone through, and, making sure that they are taken into account, but people appreciate the values and beliefs that are going on as well. So these academics and theorists have different perceptions of what organizational culture means and the importance of it. So characteristics of organizational culture. So there's different characteristics in place. We have innovation and risk-taking. We have attention to detail, outcome orientation, people orientation, team orientation, aggressiveness and stability. So these are some of the characteristics within organizational culture. We've got things like, adaptability, the fact that we have shared values as well. Certain organizations with strong shared values tend to have a more cohesive workforce. And, we've got clear communication. And I think communication is really, really important and strong characteristics for organizational culture. If there's clear communication, so the organization, it ensures that everyone will understand their goals, their values and expectation. I mean, what do you think about communication within organizational culture? Do you think it's an important element of it?
Yeah, I think it's the way that it flows within a structure. So if you've got a top-down bureaucratic style of management structure, you'll tend to get decision making at the top and then it flows down. And so within that direction, you get managers that pass on that are what's the word, that are given a directive from above, and then they implement things to the team from above. And so you get that flow of communication, whereas in a kind of more transformational type of structure, maybe commitment-based structure, you've got sort of lateral communication flows. So you'll have things like huddles, for example, team huddles, where staff on the front line share the problems of the day, and then that goes up to the more senior management positions. Or you have opportunities for, let's say, middle managers to plan for things in their personal development targets that involve their own ideas, their own suggestions. And so openness towards like suggestions from all levels of the organization is
that's really important. I agree with you 100%. Employee involvement is really, really good, because it gives that employee the satisfaction that the company is actually listening to them. Recognition, things like rewards and stuff like that, and implemented things like diversity and inclusion within your organization, like you mentioned earlier, is a strong characteristic of organizational culture, making sure that you're recognizing different people's cultures, embracing inclusion and diversity as well. Contrasting organizational cultures. So we've got two, Organization A and Organization B, and organization managers must fully document all decisions. Organization A, creative decision-making, change and risks are not encouraged. Extensive rules and regulations exist for all employees. Productivity is valued over employee morale. Employees are encouraged to stay within their own department, and individuals' effort is encouraged. Do you think that's a good organization to have, Organization 1?
It can be. I mean, this is a commitment. Sorry, this is a control-based model. So I mean, certain industries do better with a control-based model.
Yes.
For example, certain manufacturing firms work better where people are basically given a set number of tasks to do, and they have to go through them. I mean, the control sort of system is sort of prevalent in, you know, in Asia or places like places like Russia, places like
China as well, Hong Kong, China, places like that where their predominant goal is they're workaholics, so they work better under Organisation A because they have structure in place.
Yeah, it depends on it depends on the culture of the personnel as well. If you've got people who work in a better environment that like to be told specific tasks, something like, you know, in certain industries, perhaps like engineering, for example, where people are their mindset is to not be creative. Their mindset is to sort of follow rules and do things well. I mean, the military, for example, is a good idea of, you can't have an organization B for a military structure because it's not about, the military is about discipline. So it can work, but actually the research shows that commitment-based models actually work better on loads of different levels.
And then we have Organisation B, where management encourages and rewards risk-taking and change. Employees are encouraged to run with ideas, and failures are treated as learning experiences. Employers have few rules and regulations to follow. Productivity is balanced with treating its people right, and team members are encouraged to interact with other levels. Many rewards are team-based, and this is what we looked at, the fact that, you know, you get rewards. Some organizations work better like that. Some work better with the controlled system in place. And sometimes it's not good to have Organisation B in place if you have employees that lack the stability to work, because it gives them that freedom. What do you think of that, Organisation B?
Yeah, I think like in a service economy where you've got innovation is really important. So like look at Google or Facebook or any of the big tech firms, their business, their product is continuously evolving. So they need people within the organization to be innovative, and to encourage innovation, you need to have like open communication, teamwork, you know, all of those things which are then reflected in the kind of policies that you've got there. So like having team-based rewards instead of individualized rewards encourages people to work together, and that promotes communication. You know, so that model, from what I understand, since the sort of 1990s, is the kind of prevalent one in most organizations in the kind of Western world, in the service economy.
I think there are pros and cons for both models, but they have to fit the kind of organization you work in. Like you said, the Organisation A is more of a manufacturing kind of organization where, you know, you've got to follow the productivity and you've got to follow rules in place and regulations, because it's the risk of not following them would, you know, maybe affect the employees, you know, like policies and how you use machinery and things like that. So yeah, I think they're both good in their own way, but there are pros and cons of both.
One of the things of the commitment-based model is that a lot of research shows it's better for retention. So people are more likely to stay. And even if I'm just thinking from past experience, I had a job once where I worked for a delivery firm. DPD, and it was all about like efficiency with timing. So they were very strict on things that you do. But almost everyone was really unhappy because they were constantly pushed to do the absolute maximum. And so even with a control-based model that works for the business and works for the employees, you are still going to get a higher number of like dissatisfied staff, and then that affects retention. Whereas if you can make the commitment-based model work, it's statistically proven to basically retain people better and make people happier.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny how organisations work, but which impact on the organisation itself as well, and how they treat employees and how the culture identifies how an employee works and how less they work or how more they work and what their values and attitudes are for work. So I've got an activity there that you can do in your own time, and it's looking at identifying some key aspects of your own organizational culture, looking at your values, your beliefs, your behavior, or our taken for granted assumptions as well. So have a look at that in your own time. How organizational culture forms. So we have the element of the development starts with like the organization founders, the selection criteria. You have top management, socialization, and organizational culture. So it starts with a strong leadership, and then with business strategy and how the organization actually grows from the bottom up, and looking at reinforcing systems of values, uniting employees, and also looking at, this culture of shared values. So it looks at the philosophy of organization founders, the selection criteria of top management, and the bottom is the socialization and organization's culture. So there's an overlap of that as well. But it's really important to have that organizational culture within an organization to make sure that everyone is kind of bringing in different values and beliefs as well. So culture's functions. You have social glue that helps hold an organization together. You have boundary defining, and then boundaries that can be put in place. Conveys a sense of identity for organization members, facilitates commitment to something larger than one individual's self-interest, enhances social stability, and serves as a sense-making and control mechanism. It's the functions are that what holds the organization together. So, when we look at culture's functions, it shapes the attitudes, behavior, and the performance of any members in an organization, how it plays a vital role within an organization, and makes sure that, culture are equally valuing, respecting, making sure that your validation and growth, making sure that you are listening to your employees, enhancing social stability as well. That's really important within an organization to get this kind of culture environment. It works for some organizations, as we said, for some it may not work, depending on how the organization is run. Having this, when we look at this, when we talk about this social glue that helps hold an organization together, do you think it's really important to have this kind of glue that holds this organization together?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% that it's really important to have, because if everything falls apart, the organization doesn't work. The culture of the organization doesn't work. People don't have any faith, and they don't have any beliefs, they don't have any culture in place. So, for a strong organization, there needs to be some form of identification that this organization will be working together. Conditions for culture change, so dramatic crisis. What could a dramatic crisis be within an organization for culture to change?
The CEO
Yeah.
leaves or dies. I don't know, something like that.
Yes, yeah. It could be a turnover in leadership, like you said. It may be young, small organization, weak culture. It could be the environment, around. It could be technological inventions, it could be factors, different factors, things like, it could be the CEO, it could be the leadership. It could be laws as well in place, that change the culture. But there are lots of, elements that do change the culture. You know, it could be consistency, transparency. It could be that the managers change. It could be CEO that changes, you know, that impacts on a crisis. It could be small organizations, you know, coming in place, turnover in leadership. So these are some of the conditions for cultural change. Suggestions for changing culture. So having top management people become positive roles, setting the tone through their behavior. In the organization I work for, they do have this kind of culture where they become, you know, they have more positive roles through top management. I don't know if it always works though. I mean, I don't, what do you think? I don't know if for me, you know, like top management becoming a positive role model is a good thing, but the issue is whether it works or not. And for some organizations, it works. For others, it would not work for small organizations.
Mm.
Great stories, symbols, rituals replacing current in vogue. Select, promote, support employees. As we said, you know, make sure you you know, reward employees if there's any form of, you know, promotion for them. Make sure you know, identify that to the employees and support them through the process. Redesign socialization process in line with new values. That's the key for changing culture as well. Change the reward system to encourage acceptance of new set of values. Replace unwritten norms and formal rules and regulations that are tightly enforced. What do you think it means by that? Replace unwritten rules and norms and regulations that are tightly enforced.
Well, I suppose it's about forming behaviours into policy, and procedures. So, and what that will do is
it's not
get...
something that can be done quite quickly, though, is it? It's something that needs to change over time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shake up current subcultures through transfers, job rotation, and work to get peer groups consensus through utilization of employee participation. It's always good to involve employees in everything, and I believe that, not that it, you know, it's going to change anything. Employee involvement and, you know, recommendations, identify that you trust the employee and you're able to listen to them. And it's really important for any employee that you listen as a manager, and take on board what they say. So Levin's three-stage change model. So he had this model of unfreezing, moving, and refreezing. And his model, Levin's model, looked at change behavior and how humans accept, embrace, and perform change. And you know, he had this model called the ITHM model, and incorporated different changes to management. And he had a three-stage model which we looked at. And he was, I think he was German American psychologist, and his research identified that there needs to be change in order to evaluate two areas, and he looked at the change process in organizations' environments and how status quo could be challenged. And he looked at the behavior of an individual in response to proposed change, and he looked at the elements of unfreezing, and he identified, what do you think unfreezing was in his argument? What do you think it meant?
Just having a look at the slide. So it means basically raising awareness of the problems, and then activating top management support, and then gaining ideas, building rewards, and basically approaching the problem with the whole team, I think.
Yeah. He argues, you know, within unfreeze is human behavior. And like you said, with respect to change, you know, try to identify change and the process of, you know, resistance as well in elements. So making sure they're determining what needs to be changed, making sure that there's support from management in regarding that, and creating the need for change. That's what you looked at when it looked at unfreezing. Also the element of which one are we looking at? Is change. So moving is establishing goals, instituting small acceptance changes. So once unfrozen, you know, they need to implement changes. And it's not always easy to implement change. It's sometimes quite complex. So, you know, planning needs to go into process and make sure you prepare a variety of different changes in a plan, you know, making sure that you're, you know, that you're making sure that you are during this phase communicating with others, and promoting and empowering action and maintaining a two-way communication. That's why I said communication is really, really important when it comes to elements of management. Then you went on to refreezing, which is to build success experiences. What do you think you meant by refreezing?
It's about getting back to the norm. So
Yes.
you've implemented the new behavior, new
Changes,
thing.
yes.
Now it's about sort of smoothing it over and getting back to normal. So you've gone from a position of getting everyone concerned about the problem. You've implemented the new problem. Now it's about assuring everyone and getting back to the flow of work, I guess.
So you've said they've implemented the change, and putting the barriers together, promoted the change long term, and considering any sort of leadership support and things like that. It also developing, you know, changes, offering things like, you know, training, support, communication, be it long term or short term. And, you know, it was an element of change and making sure that you have implemented that change. Sources of individual resistance to change. So you've got individual resistance in the middle, and then you've got sources, things like habit, security, economic factors, the fear of the unknown, and selective information processing. And that's the individual resistant, when employers resist any sort of change. You know, it may be dependent on their perception, personality, or their needs, you know, so they're resistant to change. Some employees are like that. And I think sometimes in an organization where there's a lot of IT and you've got employees that are of a certain age, they are quite resistant to any sort of change with IT. And I've realized that in my organization where I work, you know, the older lecturers don't like IT, whereas the more newer lecturers, you know, won't be resistant to any sort of change. Does that affect the element of what their needs are? And, you know, does it affect, you know, because it could be things like, you know, lack of training, it could be, you know, helping them change their basic perception and personality, but could that affect the organization?
Oh yeah, massively. I think personality types play a factor as well, because you've got people have a certain mindset that don't like that they like regularity. And whereas you get other people who are quite good at I suppose facing uncertainties that like change. If you've not got a culture which is very adapted at changes, you're going to get more resistance to it.
I think it does affect an organization, because I've seen it where I'm working, and you know, IT resources, you've got them always, you know, their perception of everything, and it's not just them. I mean, for me, I think I have to write everything down. I'm quite old school, and I have to work through writing everything down. Even when I was doing my essays, I had to write things down before I could put it on the computer, whereas the new generation now will just type onto the computer with the use of, you know, AI and things like that. But the habits and the, you know, the fear of the unknown sometimes are for you know, and sometimes you said their personality, you know, people's personality. They'll be thinking about, you know, I have to do this like this and I have to do it a certain way.
I've noticed people that I work with still print off when we're sort of planning. Print off plans, write them down on a bit of paper, and then rewrite them back into the computer, like what you described.
Yeah, I do that.
But I like writing things down. I'm writing loads of notes now. But I'll write for my own learning. But when I'm working, I won't do that. I'll just go, okay, I'm not going to write on a bit of paper because then I have to do it again. I tend to do things like as quickly as possible. So like if we're planning, I'll be on the Word document planning, putting ideas down, and then I'll go back and I'll review it and
I think everyone has a different style, but it does cause problems sometimes, you know, if there's any sort of resistance to change.
Yeah.
Effective leadership and management styles. So, you know, management styles, there are different ways in which a leader plans and organizes and has a different style. You know, the leadership, the knowledge and skill to do the job, and commitment as well. So everyone has a different leadership style, and it ensures that the team collaborates well, and, you know, tasks are delegated. So everyone has this, you know, different leadership style, and that's how they work. You know, there are different leadership styles and people work differently, but that works for that person. People may not accept it, but, you know, it works for that individual. So we have the first one, the leadership styles, is the directing leader. What do you think a directing leader is? Sets goals.
Yeah, all those things there.
Yeah, identifies problems, comes up with solutions. They tell their followers what needs to be done. So decides who does what, gives specific directions, announces decisions. Sometimes I don't know about I don't know whether this works in certain organizations. It's someone who's really task-oriented style and who has the active role, you know, who takes the leader's role and is clear about his objectives and showing employees. Sometimes this works in a good organization, you know, if their employers feel like they don't, if they want to be told, you know, this is sometimes an out of fashion kind of leadership style, but it's still used.
Yeah, I mean, I could see where that might work if you've got very inexperienced, like a team of very experienced people, and it's like maybe a temporary work environment.
Yeah.
You need to have somebody basically cracking the whip.
Yeah.
But for let's say more mature professionals who have a lot of thinking capacity, a lot of autonomy, they will not appreciate being told exactly what to do. I mean,
exactly,
and it will actually cause problems.
Yeah, it will. And sometimes, you know, with the issue now with all the COVID and all the remote working at home, this kind of directed leadership is predominantly, I think, people working at home as well. You know, they are told what to do and how to do it, and they follow that lead.
Maybe when you've got leaders that are less in touch with their they rely on that sort of thing.
Yes, yeah. And then we've got the next one, which is the coaching leader. They set goals. They adopt this kind of coaching style to take an individual approach. They identify the problem, develop the plan, make the final decision, explain decisions to employees and ask for their ideas, praises employees' work efforts, continues to direct employees' work, evaluates employees' work, and this is like a kind of a leadership that builds trust and rapport within, you know, the organization, and, you know, tries to identify, you know, this kind of coaching role. And this is more about developing team members as individuals, you know, giving them the kind of responsibility, but not such a responsibility. I think this role is there to build strong relationships between employees and employers. Have you got anything to say about the coaching leader? What do you think? Do you think it's more employer-employee driven?
Yeah, I think people like these kind of leaders.
Yes.
They like to work with them. But I mean, the criticism is that if you've got a very fast-moving situation and you actually want somebody to be more directive as a leader, you know, the coaching leadership style, it's very much about keeping people happy.
Yes.
Praising efforts and things like that, but it might not necessarily work in all situations. I mean, I remember when I was a director of studies, there was a guy who was a director for one of the schools, and he had this kind of style. He was really popular. People liked working at the school, but it was not really about targets. It was more about this kind of nice culture to work in, which works if that's what the company.
You've still got to meet your targets, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, if you're coaching everyone and dealing with people's feelings and things like that, you might find that if there is a resistance to change, then that resistance is going to continue.
Yes, yeah.
Sometimes people need a bit more prodding.
Yeah, they do. I think. Sorry, go on, Jay.
I would say it's not personally my preferred style, but for me personally, it doesn't work very well for me. But it does work. I've seen it work, and I've witnessed it work on myself. So it's one of those where it will just match the personality of the leader often.
Yes, yeah, you're right. Then we've got the supported leader who involves employees, builds that trust, takes the lead in defining how the job or solve a problem, provides support resources, shares responsibility for problem solving, listens to employees and guides them, and evaluates an employee's work with that person. So encourages, overcomes challenges. These are more supportive leaders, and encourage teamwork and pay attention. We then have the delegating leader who identifies problems with employees, sets goals with employees, develops plans and makes decisions with employees, lets employees decide who does the task, accepts employees' decisions and monitors their performance, and lets employees evaluate their own work and lets them take responsibility. And this is more less intrusive style where leader delegates and tasks to individual team members, you know, so they gives them more control and power. And sometimes this is not a good one to have in place as well, because I think the whole point of it is to have this kind of style is to make sure that the employees accomplish their projects, but it doesn't always work when you give the employee more authority. So I think this one sometimes works for certain organisations, but certain organisations I don't think it worked for. And then we've got the so the meaning of quality is really important when we look at what quality is in regards to, you know, what is the, you know, definition. It's things like, you know, sometimes companies identify a degree of excellence, as in Webster's dictionary, that's what it means. American Society for Quality identified it as a totality of features and characteristics that satisfy needs. And then consumer and producers advertise it as quality as perspective. So there's not actually one meaning for quality in certain assumptions. You know, they all have different definitions of it. Some people identify it as efficiency of a product, satisfying needs, product performance, you know, setting standards. Everyone has a different definition of what quality means. You know, it could be someone's perspective of, you know, something's fit for purpose, you know, product performance. It could be how something is created and how it functions. So everyone has a different meaning of what quality is. So meaning of quality, you have meaning of quality. So the producer's perspective, quality of performance to specifications, the cost, and then production. And then on the other side, you have the consumer's perception of quality. And that's the quality of design, like we mentioned. It could be the fitness for use, you know, the price. You know, consumers have a total different perception of what quality means. If it's fitness for purpose, and that's through marketing, is the product, designed to what their elements are. You know, what do they, you know, is it the quality of the product good? You know, whether the product, you know, and it could be to do with price, you know, whether it's price efficient. So everyone has a different element of what quality is. So total quality management is commitment to quality through our organization, and the principles are customer-oriented, leadership, strategic planning, employee responsibility, continuous improvement and cooperation, statistical methods and training in an organization. And this TQM is a management approach to long-term success through customer satisfaction. So, you know, it's the continual process of detecting and reducing or eliminating errors in manufacturing. So it works for organizations where they continually try to reduce any sort of errors that are occurring. And it's how an organization installs any sort of permanent climate with employees to improve the ability to produce, you know, goods and make sure that you enhance things like customer satisfaction. It focuses on delivering products and services to the highest standards to the customer, and making sure that they're eliminating any sort of issues around that, any defects or anything like that. Quality gurus, and the first one was Walter Stewart. In 1920s, he developed control charts and introduced the quality assurance, and he reported that bringing a process into the state of statistical control where there's only one cause variation and keep it in control to reduce waste and improve quality. Then we had Edwards Deming. He's well known for his quality control in making sure that quality control techniques to engineers, and it was after World War II that were military suppliers. So after the war, began teaching statistical quality control to Japanese companies, and making sure that everything was trying to make sure everything was of good quality. And his theory stated that people are motivated by intrinsic factors such as job satisfaction and a sense of belonging. So it's important to make sure, he said that, make sure what understands what make them tick. And then we've got the final one, which was Joseph M. Duran. Actually, we've got another two as well after him. And he said that a product needs to meet customer needs, leading to customer satisfaction. So he focused on quality, strategic quality planning. And he said that quality also means that all activities in which a business engages is to ensure the product meets the customer needs. So he was looking at mainly identifying what the customer needs were at that time. Then we've got Armand Verfegman, I can never say that name, and he's known for developing the concept of quality control and focusing on integrating all aspects of organization operations to achieve quality. And he also introduced the idea of cost of quality to ensure the way to measure the impact of poor quality of goods on an organization. Then we had Phil Crosby, and he emphasized that poor quality far outweighed the cost of preventing poor quality, and in 1894 defined absolute of quality management, so looked at requirements and prevention of zero defects. And the final one is Karo Ishaka, and they promoted the use of quality cycles, developed fishbone diagram, and emphasized importance of internal customers. Then you've got the Deming's 14 points and why they were so important in regards to the importance of minimizing total costs with a single source. And he looked at it being unreasonable to expect a supplier to both improve quality and lower costs. So, you know, he looked at the 14 points to help companies increase their quality and productivity. So firstly, create consistency of purpose, adopt philosophy of prevention, cease mass inspection, select suppliers based on quality. Number 5, constantly improve system and workers. Number 6, institute worker training. Number 7, instill leadership among supervisors. Number 8, eliminate fear among employees. Number 9, eliminate barriers between departments. Number 10, eliminate slogans. Number 11, remove numerical quotas, enhance workers' pride. Number 12, institute vigorous training and education programs. Number 13, and develop a commitment from top management to implement above 13 points. Number 14, and these were points to make sure that practices to help companies increase their quality and productivity. Then we have Deming's wheel, the PDCA wheel, which looked at improvement cycle. It was a cycle based on scientific method of proposing a change in process, implementing change, implementing, measuring the results and taking appropriate action. So the first one was planning, second one was to do, implement, plan, third to study and check, and then the fourth one is to act on that plan. And it was a process for gaining any sort of valuable learning and knowledge for continual improvement. And this cycle worked for quality management for many organizations, you know, and people still use this cycle, the PDCA cycle, to help them in regards to quality management. Then we had the element of 2QM, so partnering a relationship between a company and its suppliers based on mutual quality. Customers, systems must measure customer satisfaction, and information technology infrastructure of hardware networks and software necessary to support a quality program. So you have the quality cycle, you've got organizations, training, problem identification, problem analysis, solution problems and presentation. And this is really important in regards to identifying any sort of problems. Make sure you brainstorm anything and make sure you've got solutions in place and implementing them solutions. Then we've got the 6 stigma, and this is actually an idea that is based on that all business processes can be measured and optimized. And the 6 stigma originated in manufacturing and the means of quality control. Why do you think it originated in manufacturing in regards to quality control?
Sorry, I'm sort of catching up a little bit.
Oh, sorry. It's the 6. It's a process for developing and delivering near perfect products and services. Why do you think it started at manufacturing first?
I suppose because manufacturers produce physical goods that you can apply a lot of quality to. You can physically see where, like, if you're designing a lamp.
Yes, and it could look at any sort of, you know, it was the fact that it removed any sort of elements of defects as well, you know, and made sure that, you know, the processes, the products, you know, are current and eliminating any sort of defects. So it was the opportunity for the 6 stigma. It looked at identifying production process more and making sure that everything is, you know, the processes, everything are in place to identify any sort of defects that are in place. So, you know, it started with manufacturing because that is, like you said, the process where everything needs to be done properly. Black belts and green belts. So the black belt is in regards to project leaders. So anyone that's a black belt is a project leader. Master black belt, a teacher and a mentor for black belts. And then green belts are project team members. They work on quality improvement projects. Green belts tend to work on quality improvement projects, whereas black belts lead teams to achieve the business objectives. And then you have master black belts are champions who guide people like, you know, maybe project managers and to enhance any sort of quality and efficiency of the organization and the processes the business works in. You know, so they are there to identify. So you have the master ones who are there to mentor the black belts. You have the 6 stigma, which is called the DIMAC, so define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. And these parts are followed in an organization in regards to the the processes. So you define the problem, you measure it, improve activity, you analyze, and then you improve it. So there's where you look at improvement for any sort of activities. And then the control is looking at the element of where you'd look at the process, whether it's controlled properly, whether controls are put in place, and ensures that the gains are sustained. So you have define, which is the clarifying the problem and the process, measure, which is looking at the element of quantifying the problem and mapping the process, and then analyzing, determining the root causes, and then improving, confirming the solutions work, and then control, ensuring the gains are sustained. Do you think this works for most organizations in regards to quality, them using these, sources and these theories and analysis and, these like these statements in place? Do you think these models work for organizations and these processes?
Well, it's a completely new concept to me.
Yeah.
I don't know where do the belts come from, the judo terms?
The belts identified through
Black
the
belt and the green belt and all that stuff. Is that part of the theory, or?
Yes, no, that's part of the element of trying to look at identifying the different processes. This is what they gave them, the how they, so they gave them an element of, trying to identify which category they fell within. So it was part of that six stigma, the six stigma that we looked at above, this one here. So the process of developing that goods are perfect products, this black belts and green belts was identified through that theory. It was like a project to develop any sort of, it was an element of trying to work on quality improvement. So they identified these phrases for black belt, master black belt, and green belts, and what each one did. So it was a process that was identified through the six stigma belts. And it looked at the level. So, it looked at the different levels that managers tend to use, and which one would identify, the green belt being the most. If you think about it, the green belt is the lowest, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the master black belt is the teacher mentor. And then you have the black belt, which is the project leader. So this came about in regards to trying to identify through the six stigma how this process fitted into the organization.
I'd have to read more about it.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, it's they're bringing these principles of theories and models to help identify and eliminate any sort of issues around the organization, to see whether each organization would use them in regards to their organization. So the TQM principles of TQM, total quality management, apply equally to services and manufacturing. Services and manufacturing companies have similar inputs, but different processes and outputs. So every organization works differently. And one of the main focuses of the TQM is to focus on customer and their needs and preferences, and gives them feedback. So service tend to be labor intensive in TQM, and service defects are not always easy to measure because service output is not usually a tangible item. And it's mainly there to improve processes, products, services, and work. There are some benefits with TQM because they like to have it as a long-term success for customer satisfaction. Quality attributes in service. So you have the benchmark attributes within a service to make sure that people are meeting the level of quality that one company seeks to achieve, and how quickly they are doing it, making sure they are meeting quality standards, making sure that they are reliable, making sure that they are meeting the standards that are required, and how long that takes them to meet them standards. So they follow a benchmark, which is really important in elements of meeting that standards. Cost of quality. So looking at the cost of achieving quality allows organizations to determine the extent to which resources are used. So cost of achieving good quality, prevention costs, so during product design. So there's an element of resources that are needed in regards to cost of quality, appraisal costs, costs of measuring, testing, analyzing. You need to have these in place because, resources need to be in place so that you can meet the cost, the quality of everything. Cost of poor quality, internal failure include scrap, rework, process failure, downtime, and price reductions. External failure costs include complaints, returns, warranty claims, liability, and lost sales. Do you think cost of quality is really important part of an organization?
I would say yes.
Yeah. Do you think it could be if it's not followed properly when we look at the poor quality, do you think it could be a financial loss for an organization, or reputational or brand, damage to an organization?
Well, yeah, the Philip Crosby thing above, he was saying that the cost of poor quality outweighs the cost of improving quality.
Yes, yeah.
So
it will impact
the
on it.
The impact of a poor product is more likely to produce reputational damage.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah.
So, like, for example, if you think about product recalls, if you remember the thing a while ago of
yes,
horse meat in supermarkets and things. So the cost of fixing that problem internally, yes, it would cost something, but the cost of them recalling all those products and the reputational damage is much higher than
it is. And I got a letter just recently about my car, and they've recalled it back because they think there's something wrong with it, with the Range Rovers, the immobilizer. So they've recalled it back, and they've
got a lot of problems if you've got a Range Rover.
Yeah, you've got so much. Oh my God, so much problems. Yeah.
You want to get a Honda?
Sorry, what's that?
You should look at Honda.
Yeah, maybe I should. I need to look for a new one. But there's so many problems and there's so many issues. What they're doing, the people are trying to, if they're trying to pinch the car, it's easily taken nowadays. So they've given me this kind of package to put it in so that they can't detect the key or something, but they've recalled that back as well. So these kind of recall doesn't help the reputation, because all the Range Rovers now, the cost has gone down, insurance has gone high, and that's because of the recalling of them.
Is it a new Range Rover? Or
yeah.
It is.
It's not brand new, but it's a 2017, but it's on that recall list.
Yeah, they're one of the worst in terms of reliability.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I know that now after getting it.
Yeah.
So ISO, it stands for International Organization for Standardization, and they set procedures and policies for international quality certification of supply, and they set standards. And the international standards on the quality and management assurance developed to help companies effectively document the quality system elements. So they need to maintain an efficient quality system. So there are specific ones in place. So you have IS 9200 quality systems, defines the fundamental elements of the quality assurance. And then you have IS 9001 to 2000 standards to assess ability to achieve customer satisfaction. And then you have IS 9004, which is 2000 quality management system guidelines for performance improvement. So this is guidance for organizations and companies for continual improvement of its quality management system, you know, making sure that everything is met all the time, you know, making sure that the quality of the product is always on an international scale, always met, and also making sure that this is about giving advice on making customers happy, improving their overall performance, and making sure that, you know, they're adapting to change as well. And it's all about quality management system and making it more successful, is this ISO 9004 and 2000. So there's a quiz there that you can look at on leadership management styles in your own time, and it's a revision quiz, and it'll help you identify certain elements. So you could link on that and go on that in your own time. Some references that for today's session are on there. And there are books that would refer to things like international business, and things like, you know, management and quality assurance as well. So you could have a look at them in your own time, and there are some additional reading on Moodle if you need to go on to Moodle. Have you got any questions? We've finished Learning Outcome 1 now. Have you got any questions about Learning Outcome 1?
Yeah, in terms of those models, I guess we've got TQM, Six Sigma. Those are the main ones. What's the main one that's worth learning for this assignment?
For the assignment, I think it asks you about all the models in regards to that. So, you know, like it'll ask you about elements of, I haven't actually, I'll just give me 1 minute. I'm just gonna see if I can get it up.
Because they normally want you to sort of outline.
Yeah, they want you to look at the theories and the models and things like that. So the main ones to look at is I think what they want you to look at is things like, you know, the leadership and management styles, you know, the dictator, the directive, things like that. I don't think they look asking for theorists, academics, you know, like the examples of academia in regards to the TQM and things like that. I'm just having a look through it. Just 1 minute. It's asking you to look at leadership and management styles. And it's asking you to look at continuous improvement to support organizational structures. And I think you would have to mention in their TQM, quality assurance and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, go back to the learning outcomes.
Yeah.
Merit is about the styles. So if you want the merit, you have to talk about the styles. But the
distinction is about continuous improvement in supporting organizational structure success. And then the past ones are the features of organizational culture, which you'll talk about that and how they apply for continuous improvement, and then assess approaches and methods that can be used to assist with the introduction of the acceptance of organizational change. And that's looking at elements of, you know, how what approaches would be used and what methods.
So that's about models.
Yes, models and things like that. Yes.
That's going to be Lewin's 3-step change.
Yeah, you could look at that Lewin's 3-step change model.
Right.
Yeah.
And I suppose quality comes in at maybe 1.3.
Yeah, 1.3. Yeah. And you know, we could and then the leadership styles would be things like, you know, the directing leader, coaching leader, looking at them in a little bit more detail and avoiding using like bullet points. You know, it needs to academically flow when you talk about each of the styles or any of the work, you know. When I always do the assignment discussion sessions, I always mention that, you know, especially when you're on a certain level of a course, it needs to academically flow, and it needs to be a professional, presentable piece of work rather than just bullet pointing each one.
Yeah, don't worry about that. I wrote 30 odd pages for my last one, so hoping this was going to be shorter.
So it would be nice to read then. We'll go through the assignment discussion towards the end when we've done all the learning outcomes, okay? So you've got a better idea of what we need to do and how we need to do it, okay? If you've got any questions, please email learnerwork@ukvarsity.co.uk or directly email me, shazia@ukvarsity.co.uk.
Thank you, Shazia.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice to meet you, Jay.
You too.
And I will see you in tomorrow's session, hopefully.
All right. See you tomorrow.
Excellent.
Take
See
care.
you later. Take care. Bye.
Bye.